arrive at a fair and just rule as if we imagine ourselves to be in a situation in which we have to make decisions about how society should be organized. Although we do not know which position we would ourselves occupy in that society, that is, we do not know what kind of family we would be born in, whether we would be born into an upper caste or lower caste, family rich or poor, privileged or disadvantaged. Roles argues that if we do not know in this sense who will be and what options would be available to us in the future society, we will be likely to support our decisions about the rules and organization of that future society, which would be fair for all the members. Rawls describe this as a thinking under a veil of ignorance. This is a thinking under a veil of ignorance. He expects that in such a situation of complete ignorance about our possible positions and status in the society, each person would decide in the way they generally do, that is in terms of their own interests. But since no one knows who he would be and what is going to benefit him, each will envisage the future society from the point of views of the worst of, and it will be clear to a person who can reason and think for himself that those who are born privileged will enjoy certain special opportunities, but what if they have the misfortune of being born in a disadvantaged section of the society where few opportunities would be available to them? Hence it would make sense for each person acting in his or her own interest to try to think of rules of the organization that will ensure reasonable opportunities to the weaker sections, and the attempt will be to see the important resources like education, health, shelter, etc. are available to all the persons even if they are not part of the upper class. It is, of course, not easy to erase our identities and to imagine oneself under a veil of ignorance, but then it is equally difficult for most to be self-sacrificing and share their good fortune with the strangers. That is why we habitually associate self-sacrifice with the heroism. Given these human failings and limitations, it is better for us to think of framework that does not require extraordinary actions. The merit of the veil of ignorance position is that it expects people to just be their usual rational selves. They are expected to think for themselves and choose what they regard to be in their interest, and the pertinent thing, however, is that when they choose under the veil of ignorance, they will find that it is not their interest to think from the position of the worst of. Here, why do they say justice delayed is justice denied? Because of a decision in a dispute in delayed too much or too long, the injured person may not receive any benefit from the judicial proceedings. What would be the use of getting a decision in one's favor after one is dead? And then उसके बाद जो next है वो क्या है? Wearing the imagined veil of ignorance is the first step in arriving at a system of fair laws and policies. It will be evident that rational persons will not only see things from the perspectives of the worst of, and they will also try to ensure that the policies they frame benefit the society as a whole. Both things have to go hand in hand, since no one knows what position they will occupy in the future society. Each will seek rules that protect them in the case they happen to be born among the worst of, and but it would make sense if they also try to ensure that their chosen policy does not also make those who are better off or weaker, because it is also possible that they could be born into a privileged positions in the future society. Therefore, it would be in the interests of all that society as a whole should benefit from the rules and policies that are decided, and not just any particular section. Such fairness would be the outcome of the rational action, not the benevolence or generosity. उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है? रोल्स देयरफॉर आर्ग्यूज दैट रैशनल थिंकिंग नॉट morality could lead us to be fair and just impartially, and regarding how to distribute the benefits and burdens of the society. In his examples, there are no goals or norms of morality that are given to us in advance, and we remain free to determine what is best for ourselves. It is not this belief which makes Rawls' theory an important and compelling way to approach the question of fairness and justice. उसके बाद नेक्स्ट जो है वो क्या है? लेट्स डू इट. वेरियस कैलकुलेशंस ऑफ द मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट्स ऑफर्ड income, water and such facilities have been made by the government agencies and UN agencies. Search in your school library or on the internet for any such calculations. Here, pursuing social justice. If in a society deep and persistent divisions exist between those who enjoy greater wealth and property and the power which goes with such ownership and those who are excluded and deprived, we would say that social justice is lacking there. We are not talking here merely about the different standards of living which may be enjoyed by different individuals in a society. Justice does not require absolute equality and sameness in the way in which people live, but a society would be considered unjust if the differences between the rich and poor are so great that they seem to be living in the different worlds altogether, and if the relatively deprived have no chance to all to improve their conditions. However, hard they may work. In other words, a just society should provide people with the basic minimum conditions to enable them to live healthy and secure lives and develop their talents as well as equal opportunities to pursue their chosen goals in the society. How can we decide what are the basic minimum conditions of life needed by the people? Various methods of calculating the basic needs of the people have been devised by the different government and by the international organizations like the World Health Organizations. But in the general, it is agreed that the basic amount of nourishment needed to remain healthy, housing, supply of clean drinking water, education, and a minimum wage would constitute an important part of these basic conditions. Providing people with their basic needs is considered to be one of the responsibilities of a democratic governments. However, providing such basic conditions of the life to all the citizens may pose a heavy burden on the governments, particularly in the countries like India, which have a large number of poor people. Even if we all agree that states should try and help the most disadvantaged members of the society to enjoy some degree of equality with the others, disagreements could still arise regarding the best methods of achieving this goal. A debate is currently going. A debate is currently going on in our society as well as in the other parts of the world about whether promoting open competition through free markets would be the best way of helping the disadvantaged without harming the better of members of the society, or whether the government should take on the responsibility of providing basic minimum to the poor if necessary. Even through a redistribution of resources in our country, these different approaches are being supported by the different political groups who debate the relative merits of different schemes for the helping marginalized sections of the population such as the rural or urban poor. We will briefly examine this debate. And then उसके बाद जो next है वो क्या है? He is Brahma Ambedkar. A just society is that society in which ascending sense of reverence and descending sense of contempt is dissolved into the creation of a compassionate society. B. Brahma Ambedkar ने बोला था ये. Free markets versus state intervention. Supporters of the free markets maintain that as far as possible, individuals should be free to own property and enter into the contracts and agreements with the others regarding prices and wages and profits. They should be free to compete with each other to gain the greatest amount of benefit. And this is a simple description of a free market. Supporters of the free market believes that if markets are left free of the state interference, the sum of the market's transactions would ensure overall a just distribution of the benefits and duties in the society. Those with the merit and talent would be rewarded accordingly, while the incompetent would get lesser reward. They would maintain that whatever be the outcome of the market distribution, it would be just. However, not all the free market supporters today would support absolutely unregulated markets. Many would now be willing to accept certain restrictions. For instance, states could step in to ensure a basic minimum standards of living to all the people, so that they are able to compete on the equal terms. But they might argue that even here, the most efficient way of providing people with the basic services might be to allow markets in the healthcare, education, and such services to develop. In the other words, and private agencies should be encouraged to provide such services, while state policies should try to empower people to buy those services. It might also be necessary for the state to give the special help to the old and the sick who cannot compete. But apart from this, the role of the state should only be to maintain a framework of laws and regulations to ensure that competition between the individuals remain free of coercion and other obstacles. They maintain that a free market is the basis of a fair and just society. The market, it is said, does not care about the caste or religion of that person. It does not see whether you are a man or a woman. It is neutral and concerned with the talents and skills that you have. If you have the talent, if you have the merit, then nothing else matters. One of the arguments put forward in the favor of a market distribution is that it gives us more choices. There is no doubt that the market system gives us more choices consumers, so we can choose the rice we eat and the school we go to, and provided that we have the means to pay for them. But regarding basic goods and services, what is important is the availability of good quality and services at a cost people can afford. If private agencies do not find this profitable for them, they may prefer not to enter that particular market or to provide cheap and substandard services. And that is why there may be few private schools in the remote rural areas, and the few which have been set up may be of low quality, and the same would be true of health care or housing. In such situations, the government might have to step in. Another argument often heard in the defense of the free markets and private enterprises is that the quality of services they provide is often superior to that provided in the government institutions, but the cost of such services may put them out of the reach of the poor. Private businesses tends to go where business would be most profitable, and hence free markets eventually tend to work in the interest of the strong, the wealthy, and the powerful. The result may be to deny rather than extend opportunities for those who are relatively weak and disadvantaged. Arguments can be put forward on both sides of the debates, but free markets often exhibit a tendency to work in the favor of the already privileged. This is why many argue that to ensure social justice, the state should step in to see that basic facilities are made available to all the members of the society. In a democratic society, disagreements about the issues of distribution and justice are inevitable and even healthy because they force us to examine different points of view and rationally defend our own views. Politics is about the negotiation of such disagreements through debate. In our own country, many kinds of social and economic inequalities exist, and much remains to be done if they are to be reduced. Studying the different principles of justice should help us to discuss the issues involved and come to an agreement regarding the best way of pursuing justice. Justice implies something which it is not only the right to do and wrong not to do, but which some individual person can claim from us and his moral right. तो ये कहा था किसने, J.S. Mill ने. ठीक है, so this chapter is done. In the next chapter we will be discussing about the rights. Thank you so much for watching and stay connected.